Welcome to this presentation on fixed income valuation for CFA Level 1 candidate 2021-2022. This reading is going to be mathematics intensive, so I request all my student candidates audience to rerun the videos as many times as you would feel comfortable until you have got a hang of the underlying concept. I will also be explaining different methodologies of approaching the same problem and certain shortcuts I will be using, which I believe are going to be very useful as far as your exam is concerned. But before you begin, I would also request all of you to kindly pause the video and go through the disclaimer. Basically, it talks about that these contents are my sole property and CFI has really got nothing to do with it, and it really does not endorse. So the defined learning outcome statements are how to price and value a fixed income security given a certain market discount rate. What are the relationship between market discount rate and that of the yields of securities? How we arrived at a theoretical fair price of a security, what is meant by clean price, what is meant by accrued interest, and the cash price. What happens in case the security under consideration is typically illiquid or it is operating in an illiquid market? So do we have any sort of relative valuation as we have in case of equity securities? So do we have something similar to that, which is also known as matrix pricing? We are also going to discuss the short-term instruments that range from 1 day overnight to 1 full year issued by several entities, including the government entities and the private commercial bodies as well, the corporates as well. Of course, the nomenclature in such cases differ in case of corporates from that of the governments. We will discuss what is meant by spot rates of different maturities and why those spot rates are called the maturity zeros, and how do we derive the forward rates and why the forward rates are called the implied forward rate through a process called bootstrapping. Different kind of yield measures, for example, current yield, yield to maturity, we will distinguish between them as well. Okay, so before actually I get into the theory, let's get directly into the problem, because I think that is the best way to understand the underlying theory. So the problem under consideration is that of a security which is issued by a company called as ABC, and it is a 5-year note with 8% coupon to be paid, fixed coupon that is, paid annually for the next 5 years. It has got a A rating and the total issue size is close to $10.45 million. So under different market interest rates ranging from 6.5% to 10%, what should be the theoretical fair price of this issue? That's the first question. The second part of the question asks that given the different assumptions of interest rates, market interest rates, which should be the one that yields maximum profit for an investor? Okay. So this is the problem in our case. So what we should do is that, as I keep on telling my fixed income students as well as the derivative students, that you should try and make a graph of the whole thing. That would help you understand the concept much better rather than using certain formula. Okay, so first is that we draw the 5-year timeline. Okay, so here the issue, suppose, is floated today t is equal to 0, and this is, let's say, t is equal to 5. Okay, and since it pays coupon every year annually, so that means that one is entitled to 5 coupons. Okay, now suppose you have invested $10,000 today of your capital in this issue size of 10.45 million. So this $10,000 is your cash outflow today, against which you will be receiving coupon at the rate of 8%. Of course, 8% to this $10,000. So you will be receiving $800 here, $800 here, $800 on the third, fourth, as well as the 5th year. But in case of 5th year, you are also going to receive back your principal which you have invested. Okay. Now, let's take the first example, that is the market interest rate being 6.5%. So at 6.5%, if I have to find out the theoretical fair price of this issue, that would be nothing but the present value of all the cash flows that I will be receiving. Am I right? Of all the cash flows that I will be receiving. And how many cash flows I am receiving? I am receiving actually 5 cash flows. The 5 coupons and the ultimate, my initial principal which I had invested. Okay. So all that I have to do is to, under different market discount rate, find out the present value of each of these cash flow and sum them up. If I sum them up, then that becomes the theoretical fair value of this security, right? So let's do the math. The math standards to be this: the first 800, the present value of this. Let's assume that we are talking about the first assumption of 6.5%. So this should, the present value of this coupon should be 800 divided by 1 plus 6.5%, right? Since it's 1 year only, so discounted by 1 year, right? Okay. Now, what about the second cash flow? The second cash flow, similarly, if you extend, the second cash flow would be 800 divided by 1 plus 6.5% square, right? So if you, in this fashion, if you keep on adding, if you keep on representing, then this becomes 800 divided by 1 plus the market discount rate of 6.5% whole cube. This becomes 800 divided by 1 plus 6.5% divided by 4, and this becomes 800 divided by 1 plus 6.5% whole to the power 5. Plus, of course, we have the principal initial value that we had invested, the present value of that. Okay. So this becomes our math. Similarly, under the assumption that the market interest rate is 8% for the tenor of this security, that is for the next 5 years starting from t is equal to 0, the similar treatment would mean that this 6.5% will be substituted by 8% and then by 10%, right? So all that we have to do is to discount these cash flows by different market interest rates under the different choices that has been presented, and then typically find out the present value of that. Now, can we do it in our calculator? Yes, the calculator provides that option. So all that you have to do, I'm depicting it here. So for this 6.5%, see, the rate of interest has been said to be 8%. So 6.5% is less than the coupon rate. So we choose this one, 6.5%. Okay. So at 6.5, all that we have to do, press n is equal to 5, that is the tenor, and then PMT put in as, since you have invested $10,000, so 8% of $10,000 comes out to be 800. So put PMT as 800, then put PV. Oops, that's what you have to find out. Okay, then put FV is equal to $10,000, which you ought to receive. The market interest rate punch in as 6.5. Okay, and then put CPT PV. Okay, so these 5 inputs we are punching, these 4 inputs if we provide to the calculator will do the job for us. Okay, so if you do this job, and before that, of course, I would also advise that before you enter into any time value of money calculation in your calculator, always put second, then put clear work. If you're using the Texas TI2, BA2 and BA2 plus professional, so this should be relatively easy to find out. Press second plus clear work, and also yes, press second. Once you've done this, again press second and press FV. So what exactly are you doing is that you are actually clearing the memory in case any value is already stored by mistake or otherwise from your prior calculations. If those values are already stored in the memory of the calculator, they will immediately be eliminated and the calculator will be in the reset mode. It should be in a position to further intake the new inputs that you are providing. So once you do that, the calculator will do the job for you. And let me just do it for you in this case. So I put in okay. So if you do this job, you will find that the PV comes out to be 10,623. Okay. So this is the theoretical fair price of this issue if the market interest rate is at 6.5%. Similarly, you can calculate the fair price in case the market interest rate is 8%. So if you input all of this value, only thing you have to change is this interest rate of 6.5% and rest of the inputs will be remaining same. You will find that your calculator will return a value of 10,000. Okay. Now, if you put in the last assumption, that is 10% out here, and again, all that you have to do is to change the market interest rate of 6.5% to 10%. All that you have to do is to do that. So input this and then press CPT PV, and the PV comes out to be 9241.8. Okay. All right. So once you have gotten hang of it, all that I'm trying to tell you is that the calculator is actually doing the job for you. The let me just okay. So all that it is doing is that the present value is nothing but the sum of these cash flows. So the calculator, all that it is doing is that it is discounting those cash flows at the market interest rate which you have providing. So instead of you doing the job of individually discounting it, individually doing the math and the algebra, the calculator does the job for you by inputting certain notation that we have just discussed. Okay. So once you get that, you've got three different answers. Okay. So now the next part is that under which market interest rate should you consider this investment? Okay. So typically what happens is there are there are actually speaking two ways of looking at this whole thing. First is the market interest rate is really not in our hand. Okay. But if given a choice, I would always like to prevail, or I would always like to invest in those securities which is yielding me the most. So in this case, this one happens to be my choice. And as you can see, at under 10%, the price or the theoretical fair price of the security was also the least, which was 9,241. So that means you did not have to actually invest $10,000, but you only had to invest $9,242 in order to receive the 8% interest on it and receive a $10,000 at the end of the tenure. Okay, so that's the one line answer to it. Of course, as you saw that 8% at 8%, what you invest today and what you get in return is absolutely same. That is because the coupon rate, which is 8%, and the discount rate both becomes same. If the coupon rate and the discount rate is same, the fair value of the face value of the security and the present value of the security theoretically will be seen. Similarly, in case the market interest rate is less than that of the coupon, that means your bond is valued more. Of course, it is but natural that your bond is paying more than what the market is yielding. So it is something more than the market. So obviously that security, all other things remaining constant, should also be valued more than the face value of 10,000 itself. So the present value, of course, was highest under this market interest rate, right? So given a choice, if every other thing remains constant, I would obviously like to invest here where I have to invest the least. The present value is least under the market interest rate of 10%, right? So I would like to invest here. But of course, this is not as simple as it looks. It was just to drive home the point out here. And of course, there are other considerations as well. One of them is that if you're getting the security actually less than the theoretical fair price of it, that should be actually be the ideal buying point. So in case, even if suppose the market interest is at 8% or at 6.5%, it really does not matter in this case, so long as the security is priced less than $10,000 in case the market is at 8%. And at 6%, we found out 6.5% market interest rate, we found out it was the present value of something $10,214. So if the actual market price of the security is less than either $10,214 when the market interest rate is at 6.5% or less than $10,000 when the market interest rate is 8%, even then also that proposition is better. Why? Because you will be getting the security cheaper than its theoretical fair price. Okay, so there are two different things that I actually drove home the point. The first was, of course, the given different market interest rate choices, which should be the one to choose from. Okay, and the second, even if only one market interest rate is given, and if you're finding the actual market price of that security less than its theoretical fair price, then that becomes a valuable proposition for you. Okay, so this relationship is the basis of our bond valuation, and we must understand that this relationship, that couple of things came out. So first, what came out was that the coupon rate and the market interest rate, they are inversely proportional. What it means, if the coupon goes high and the market interest rate remains lower, the issue should be priced more than the face value. If the coupon interest rate is same as that of the market interest rate, then the issue should be priced exactly, the theoretical price of this issue should be equal to its face value. If the coupon rate is obviously more than the market discount rate, if the coupon rate is less than the market discount rate, so that means your security is yielding less than what the market is ready to offer. So in this case, the issue should be properly discounted, and it should be the price should be less than the fair value, the face value. Okay, so this is the first relationship that we gleaned out of it. Okay, now we also need to understand a few things. That the third thing out of this is that we assumed that this market interest rate of 6.5%, 8% or 10%, they remain constant throughout the tenor of the security. So there are three things that actually we gleaned out. First was the relationship between the coupon and the market interest rate. Okay, market interest rate. So this is the first thing that we gleaned out from here. Second is we understood the meaning of the present value, that is the investment that I must make today. And of course, we also understood the meaning of the face value, and the relationship between the present value and the face value under different prevailing market interest rate. And the third thing is that since we assumed that this interest rate is going to remain constant, so this interest rate effectively also becomes the IRR, internal rate of return. Am I right? Because this interest rate was used to glean out the present value of the security, and the present value of the security was, as was explained, is nothing but the summation of the entire cash flows that we are ought to receive from this security. Okay. So this under the assumption of this constant interest rate prevailing over the tenor of the security, this constant interest rate is called the yield to maturity. And there are three more important assumptions. Number one is bonds are held unto maturity. But of course, because we talked about tenor of from t is equal to 0, the day the bond was issued in the market, to t is equal to 5, the day the bond was retired from the market. So bond is held unto maturity. This is the assumption number one. Assumption number two is that issuer does not default while making the payment of the coupons and the principal. Of course, if this is violated, then this whole calculation will go fat. It will go kaput. And the third important assumption out here is that the coupons as received are reinvested at the same rate as that of the YTM. Now, this is an important assumption. We will explain a little bit more as we move along. But all that it means is that since we were receiving those cash flows at 8%, now one of the two things could happen. One is that you either consume this 8% depending upon your need, or second is that you reinvest. Now, imagine, it is not very hard to imagine. When you reinvest, so you need to also have reinvestment opportunity. So it could so happen that when you receive your first coupon or second coupon or the coupon thereof, the market position has remained constant or the market position has changed. What do we mean by that? The market interest rate, as we assume, was 6.5% or 8% or 10%, whatever that constant rate be. So if it remains at 10% or it remains at 6.5% or 8%, that means this cash flow which you have received and you wanted to reinvest, you would not find any better opportunity, but then you would have to invest into the same rate at which the market was offering at the day the bond was issued. So that means that your reinvestment yield or the reinvestment proposition or the avenue remains same. This is one possibility. The second possibility is that when you receive your first coupon or the second coupon or the third, the market interest rate subsequently has changed. So it could so happen that under, let's say, when you had purchased this bond, the market interest rate for the 5 years terms was 6.5%. You received your first coupon, you received your second coupon, but when you received your second coupon, the market interest rate climbed from 6.5%, it became 7.5%. When it became 7.5%, what happens? This extra 100 basis point which you have got now becomes your reinvestment gain, right? Becomes your reinvestment gain, because now you have a better reinvestment proposition than the time when you had invested the bond at the market prevailing interest rate of 6.5%, right? So the assumptions are that the bonds must be held unto maturity. Second is that issuer does not default, as we discussed, because if the issuer defaults, then this calculation makes no sense. And the third is the coupons as received are reinvested at the same rate as that of the YTM. Simply put, the same market interest rate at the time of the issuance of the security itself. Because if it were not so, then again this calculation will not make any sense. Under these three assumptions, this constant internal rate of return is called the yield to maturity, and this is a very, very important concept throughout our fixed income study. Okay, so let's also understand the meaning of spot rates and also how to glean out YTM. Okay, so we take out example number 2. Example number 2, what it says is we now have an issue that is a 5-year issue with the following characteristics. It's a BB rated bond and the spot interest rates are given as S01 at 4%, S02 at 2%, 8%, S03 at 10%, and so on and so forth. Okay, up to 5 years, which is S05 is 15%. The bond pays a fixed coupon of 12%. Okay, and the second part of the question says we will come to that a little later. Let's first address the first two questions. Find the theoretical fair price of the bond. Find the YTM of the bond. Okay, so how do we do it? Now let's understand first the difference between these two problems. So the first problem that we took here, we assumed that under the assumption of either one of the three, the 6.5%, 8%, or 10%, the market interest rate remains constant throughout the tenor of the security itself. Okay, so it is not varying, it is remaining constant from the 0th year, the day the bond was issued, till the 5th year, the day the bond was retired. Okay, but the example number 2, if we see, then there are 5 different interest rates are being talked about. How does that pan out? And as before, I would urge all of you that let's take an example and let's first plot the graph. Let's understand what it's talking about. So let's take this example of S01. So S01, as you can see, is mentioned at 8%. So let's say this is 8%. Don't really look at the graph as it is. Just imagine that this point is 8%. Okay. Sorry, this is 4%. So let's imagine this is 4%. Okay. S02 is this point, which is 8%. S03 is this is 10%. S04 is 12%, and S05 is 15%. Okay. All right. Now, what does this S01 means? This S01 means the spot rate. Spot rate of what? Spot rate of the interest rate. What does it mean by the spot rate of interest rate of 4%, and why is it vary? Okay. So, understand the basic concept. The first thing is that if you go to, let's say, a bank and you want, there is, let's say, 3 options are presented. Option number 1 is that you can, in your savings, you can make a fixed deposit, and then that fixed deposit you will not withdraw for the next 1 year. So the bank is going to offer you certain rate. Let's say that rate is X%. Okay. So what is the condition? The condition is that you will not withdraw your money from this account for the next 1 year, and the bank is going to offer you X%. If you lock in your money for another year, that is for 2 years, do you believe that the bank should still offer you X%? The answer is no. The bank in this case must offer me something more than X%. Why? Because I am locked, because of a couple of reasons. The first reason is that I am locking in my money not for 1 year, but for 2 years. So there is an opportunity cost. Second is, so that's the first reason. The second reason is that whether it is bank or whether it is any other financial institution with whom I'm parking my money, I'm definitely buying in some sort of risk, right? What is the risk? What if the bank does not redeem the money, the interest and the principal at the end of the tenure? That's one realistic risk that one can think of. So in this case, this risk or this uncertainty must be compensated suitably for the lock-in period of 1 more extra year. So that means that as we move along the maturity tenure, the compensation for that should proportionately increase. This is under normal scenario, right? So this is exactly what is happening. So if you keep your money in your bank for 1 year, you're going to be compensated at the rate of 4%. If you keep your money for 2 years, you're going to be compensated higher than that. Similarly, higher for 3, 4, and 5 years, right? This is how it should be. So these rates are called the spot rates. As if you have invested for 1 year, as if you have invested for 2 years, 3 years, 4, and 5 years. It's as good as your money is being blocked for those many number of years. Now, against this, you now have a security in the market. You now have a security in the market which is rated at BBB, and it is paying a fixed coupon of 12%. Okay. So how to price this security? How to price the security? So let's again take the same TVM routes. Let's take the same cash flow route. So the pricing of the security, or the theoretical fair price of the security, must be equal to all the cash flows that is being received at my end which are projected, right? The present value of all the cash flows that I'm going to receive, right? So how much am I receiving in my first year? I'm going to receive for the next 5 years, t is equal to 0 to t is equal to 5. So each of these 5 years, I'm going to still receive 12% of my coupon, because the bond pays a fixed coupon of 12%. And here I'm going to receive 12% plus my principal, okay, which is 100. Okay, 100% rather. Okay, so this basic premise must remain same. However, now there is a little bit twist, and the twist is that this discounting factor or the market interest rate factor that varies from year to year. Okay, so what is the present value of the first year's cash flow? So the present value of my first year cash flow is 12 divided by 1 plus 4%. Why this 4%? Because this 4% is the spot rate we talked about, right, for the first year. Similarly, what is the present value of my cash flow that I'm going to receive in my second year? It is going to be again 12 divided by 1 plus 8% whole square. Similarly, the present value of my third year's cash flow should be 12 divided by 1 plus 10% whole cube, right? Similarly, my present value of the cash flow for the fourth year must be equal to 12 divided by 1 plus 12% divided by 4, and the final year is going to be again 12. We have two cash flows in the final year. One is the last coupon and then the principal. Principal, as I have told, it is always denoted in 100 or 1000. All that it means is 100 is basically the percentage and 1000 is basically the bond denomination, because every bond comes out with a particular instrument. Every instrument comes out to be a particular denomination of either 100 or multiple of that or 1000. Okay, so the fair price should be all of these cash flows put together, suitably discounted to their present value, and sum them up. Whatever that result is, that should be my fair value of the security. So if you do this math, then this value comes out to be the present value of this security, present value of this bond comes out to be 94.12, or we could say it should be 94.12% of the face value. Okay, so suppose you want to invest $10,000, so the present value of this security should be $9,412. Okay, if you are getting this security cheaper than this, then it makes a better proposition to invest in this security. But obvious, you should not pay, all other things remaining constant, you should not pay more than the fair price of the security, which is $9,412. Okay, for every 1000 value. So this is my theoretical fair price of a bond. Now the next important thing is that how do I find the YTM? Okay, now in our last example, finding the YTM was fairly easy because we just had one discount rate. Not so in this case, because we have 5 different rates for 5 different years or tenor for 5 different cash flows. So is there a way around? Of course there is a way around, and that way around is I'll show you how to go about it. You can make use of your calculator to do this job. All that you have to do is to clear your TVM and clear your work and input the details as I show you. Okay, so just press second and press clear TVM. Okay. So once you have done that, just input these details. Put n is equal to 5. Okay. Put PMT is equal to 12, which is the coupon rate. Put the face value which is going to be 100 as expressed in percentage, and the present value we have already found out to be 94.12. Remember, we always prefix the present value with a minus sign depicting that it is a cash outflow, but obvious that when you're investing in something, the cash is an outflow. This is your cash inflow. So once you have input all of this detail, all that you have to do is to put CPT I by Y. So once you do that, you will get a answer of something close to 9.53%. Okay, so what is this 9.53%? This 9.53% it says somewhere here. This 9.53% is the yield to maturity of the security. All that it means is that instead of these spot rates of 4%, 8%, 10%, 12%, and 15%, a constant market interest rate of 9.53% would have yielded the same amount as these spot rates have yielded, or under these spot rates, whatever the cash flows have yielded. Okay. So this is the theoretical equivalent of all of these 5 spot rates. This is a very, very important derivation, and I want all of you to rerun this part of the video in order to understand this. So the YTM is the single discount rate, as if you have invested at this constant discount rate of 9.53% throughout the tenure of 5 years in order to get the same yield, in order to arrive at the same price as you would have otherwise in this varying interest rates of 4%, 8%, 10%, 12%, and 15% as various spot rates. So this relationship between spot rates and the yield to maturity is extremely important, and this is exactly how one is gleaned from the another. Okay, great. Now, another important concept that we ought to know, we have already discussed this. Now, I'm just going to touch base upon this once again, and that is called the price yield trajectory. And that is, we know that a bond may be issued wherein the present value of the bond, the theoretical present value of the bond, equals the face value of the bond itself, which is by default 100 or 100%. Okay. When an issue is floated in the market in this fashion, it is called the issue has been floated at par. It has been floated at par. We also understood that in case the present value of the issue is less than the face value of an issue, as we have seen earlier, when it happens when the market interest rate is more than the coupon. We have seen this in our first example itself. Okay. If such a situation, this is called the issue has been floated at discount. This is called issue has been floated at discount. Similarly, if the present value of the security is more than the face value itself, as we have seen, when it happens when the market interest rate is less than the coupon that the bond is paying. Hence, bond will be valued more and the bond is said to be issued at premium. Okay, we have gleaned out this relationship between the coupon rate as well as the market interest rate in our preceding slides. But in all of these cases, we also made one important assumption, a couple of them in fact. One is that the issuer will not default when it comes to payment of coupon on time, and second is that the issuer will not default when it comes to making the last payment and the principal. And the third assumption was that the investor is going to hold the bond until maturity. Okay, so under these 3 assumptions, what you are going to get at maturity, regardless of when the issue was floated in the market, is already known beforehand. You are going to get 100, which is called the face value of the security. which means if a bond is issued at par, it will be redeemed at par, as we have shown already. If a bond is issued at discount, that means it will be if since the maturity was already known, so the bond is issued at discount, the bond must gradually attain the face value of the security, which is 100. Okay. And similarly, if the bond has been issued at premium, then also it must ultimately converge to its face value of 100. So whether it is a premium security issue floated at premium, or issue floated at par, or an issue which has been floated at discount, that is subpar, in all three cases, if the issuer does not default, the investor knows beforehand what he is going to get at the end of the tenure, right? Now this path, this glide path along with which the issue gradually progresses towards its face value is called the trajectory, or more precisely it's called the price yield trajectory. Okay, again, this is a very, very important derivation of concept. Again, student candidates are advised to pause the video, read on the video as many times as they want in order to understand this. Okay, so if the issue has been floated at discount, as we have seen earlier, in this particular example, if the issue has been floated at discount, when it will be floated at discount? When it is at, say, floated at 10%, and we found out the price. Now what happens is that with every passing year, the bond will accrue something, it will add on to something, so that it reaches the face value of 100. So it could very well so happen that when the issue was floated in the market, you would have purchased it at 92. Okay, let's say it's a 5-year security. So as you move along the market, that is, let's say this is t is equal to 0, you purchase it at, for a 5-year security, you purchase it at 92. So let's say this is t is equal to 3. So at the end of 3 years, the remaining maturity is of 2 years. By that time, the price of this issue, the theoretical price of this issue might already be 97. So there is an accretion of 5 from 92 to 97. This will always be the case if the issue has been floated at discount. Similarly, opposite will be the case if the issue has been floated at premium. So it might happen that the issue, when it was floated in the market, was priced at 102, and as it moves along, similar example, 5-year security, when it was floated in the market, it was at 102. At the end of the 3 year, for the remaining 2 years, the price of this security would have come down to very well at 100.5. Okay, it could very well happen. Okay, nonetheless, both these securities, whether issued at premium or issued at discount, they must converge to the face value of 100 only. Okay, this is again a very important derivation, this is a very important inference, which is called the price yield trajectory. So long as the bond is within the price yield trajectory, the price of the bond can always be predicted with 100% accuracy. Is there a deviation to this? Deviation, well, in real market, this is a theoretical price yield trajectory, and it will definitely be achieved if one holds it till maturity and the issuer does not default. But in between, in between the market, the price of the actual security may, fluctuate. It may always not remain in this glide path or in this trajectory, which is to say that that is why we differentiate between the theoretical market price or the theoretical fair value, okay, and that of the actual market price. So the actual market price and the theoretical market price need not be same always. They could differ. Okay. So these fluctuations may come in the market, okay, which can derail, which can take a short detour to the bond's price trajectory as was predicted, as was forecasted. But nonetheless, again, if you are holding it till maturity, you know pretty well, you are Guaranteed, you know for sure what you're going to get, provided the issuer does not default. So it's a very, very important derivation and inference for us to understand. So the issue that has been issued at discount, they will be redeemed at premium. Opposite will be the case for issue that has been issued at premium, they will be redeemed at discount. But obvious, the ones which are issued at par will be redeemed at par. Okay. Now the next important thing is something called as the price yield relationship. So as we have discussed in our last session, that the price yield of there is the relationship between the market interest rate and that of a price of a bond is inversely proportional. So if the interest rate goes up, the price of the security will come down. Will come down. If the interest rate goes down, the price of the security will go up. This inverse relationship was already defined, because it's also pretty much evident. What is happening is that your denominator, you have the cash flow above. The cash flow is in the form of course, coupon, and the last cash flow is also inclusive of the principal amount. And regardless, if the denominator, which is discounting this whole cash flow, if the denominator increases, if from 5% it becomes 7%, but obvious, the value of this term will definitely come down because of the higher denominator. Opposite will be the case in case the discount factor decreases. So that is what is being that is what is being depicted here graphically. So if you plot the graph, this is what you will get. Okay, this is called the famous price yield relationship. Okay, now to this, if you draw a tangent to this security, then this tangent, you take interest rate plus delta y, which is infinitesimally small amount of interest rate, on the plus side as well as on the minus side. So from the inverse relationship of the price yield, we know that if the interest rate increases, the price of the security will come down and vice versa. But how to measure that? So since the delta y is very small, so it's assumed that for very small changes, the price change is almost linear in nature. Okay, so if it is linear in nature, so we can derive at something called as, in this fashion, we can come out with the price change of that security itself, right? And this linear measure is called the duration. We have already discussed that in our preceding chapters. Okay, so the duration, the measure of duration, of course, is also got to do with the sensitivity of the bond itself. Okay, so earlier we talked about that Macaulay duration, modified duration, and we talked about different kinds of duration. So duration measures duration is nothing but the measure of sensitivity of the bond. Now, one more question is that where do I draw this tangent to this curvature? This price yield relationship is a parabolic relationship. Where do I draw the curvature? Evidently, your curvature is actually at the focal point of this parabola itself. That is where you should draw the curvature. Now, you don't have to do it yourself. The vendor, the data providers will do it. That's not for you to understand. That's not for you to actually derive. All that you need to understand is the price yield relationship. And the second important thing, which also of course comes out from this, let's focus on that. And that is that when the yield, let's say the yield decreases. So if the yield decreases, so the price as predicted by this linear measure is somewhere here, right? But the actual price is somewhere here. That means the duration measure underestimates the price when the market interest rate comes down. Okay. Second is when the interest rate increases, there also the price predicted is here, that but the actual price is found out here. So here also the duration measure underestimates the price when the market interest rate goes up, right? So this is one drawback of duration. We will later see that how it is corrected. We have already studied something called as convexity in our preceding chapters. So convexity takes care of this curvature portion which is not covered by the duration measure of the bond itself. Okay, but the important derivation is not limited to this. The important derivation is that, the measure is asymmetric itself. What do we mean by asymmetric? It means that it's systematically obviously underestimate in both the cases, but the degree of underestimation is more when the market interest rate decreases vis-a-vis when the market interest rate increases. Okay, this is the nature of the graph itself. If you study more, you will understand. So it's not like, if you sufficiently, of course, it depends upon the magnitude of the rate of interest change also. That is why we take a very small amount of delta y changes. If the delta y changes are more, then this underestimation or the degree of error will increase proportionately. Okay. So within this, now since we have got a hang of what is called as the coupon, what is called as the duration measure, and the market interest rate and the yield of a security, there are a few more important aspects that we also need to understand. And that is, there are 4 principles to this. Now, before I actually get into this 4 principle, let me draw certain graphs for you and for you to depict it, for you to analyze it. Suppose this is a fixed wall, and against this fixed wall there is this beam. We call this beam the cantilever. Okay, and let's say we put a ball at here. We put a solid ball at here. Okay, to this solid ball we apply force. We fluctuate, we apply force. So what will happen? But obvious, the beam will fluctuate. Beam will swing up and down. This is called as the cantilever effect, right? Now, what will happen in case the size or the weight of the ball or the weight of the force is increased? It's enhanced from this size of the ball. If you increase the size of the ball, and even if you apply small weight, small force on this, the swing still will be there, but it will be more violent. Am I right? You have studied this in your 5th or 6th or 7th standard, maybe in the 8th standard of physics, basic science, right? Right? So what do we understand? So we understood that if we increase the weight of ball at the farthest end of this cantilever, as we go on increasing the weight with similar force, the swing will be more for those cantilevers or those beams where the weight of the ball is more. Right? This is first derivation we found out. The second derivation is that, mind you, I'm talking about very basic common science. There's no jargon, use any theory, nothing I'm using. The second is that, suppose we are taking 2 beams side by side for comparison purposes itself, and at both ends we put similar weight balls. Okay, let's say both are 50 pounds. Both are 50 pounds. Okay. To one end of the beam, to one beam we apply greater force than the other. What will happen? But obvious, the beam which will have more force applied to it will swing more violently than the one where the force is applied is less. Right? Again, common sense only. Great. Now the third alternate that I give you is that even the weight is same, the force is same, but we are talking about a beam, one of which has greater length than the another. What do you believe will happen here? So with the same ball, same diameter ball, same size ball and same mass ball. This is ball A, this is ball B, and with the same force, this is force B apply here and this is force A apply here, where force A is equal to force B. In this case, what will happen? You've understood it correctly. The beam with longer length will again violently swing more than the beam with a shorter length, right? Let's now take one more example or one more derivation of, or one more inference, and that inference is that we take again two beams. Okay, we take two beams, equal length, two beams, equal weight of balls will be there. Okay, and equal force will also be applied, but with a difference, and that difference is that in the upper beam we have the ball of the same of let's say 50 pound of one ball, 50 pound of one ball placed at the extreme end of this beam, while in this case we place, let's say let's say 5 balls of 5 pounds each. 5 balls of 5 pounds each and another ball of 25 pounds. So in this case, what is happening? The second beam has the same weight as over it as that of the first beam, but the weights are distributed. Here the weight is at the extreme end of the barbell. Here in this case the weights are distributed somewhat uniformly. Okay, somewhat uniformly. If we add the weight of the balls, both of them will put together will have 50 pounds to them. Now to this ball, the beam of which is of equal length, similar kind of force is being applied. What do you believe will happen? Yes, again you have guessed it right. In this case, the beam where there is only one ball, that means the mass is concentrated at the extreme end only, that will obviously will have greater swing, or it will violently swing more than the ones where the balls or the weights are equally distributed, right? So we arrived at 4 important inferences. Mind you, I'm not talking about fixed income here at all. I'm talking about simple physics. So the first thing that we understood is that in case we have the length of the beam, the greater the length of the beam, for the same weight, for the same force, the one which has greater length will have more violent swing. The one which has greater force applied to them, all other things being equal, will violently swing more. The one where the weight of the ball is more will again violently swing more. The one where the weights are equally distributed will swing less violently than the ones where the weight is again concentrated at the extreme end of the barbell for equal amount of weight for equal length of the beam, right? This is a simple class 7, class 8 deduction of physics. Okay, cantilever effect. Now just replace the force arm when it comes to fixed income. Just replace these things, these 4 things. Just replace the force arm. You replace it with the measure of duration. The weight at the free end you should measure, replace it as face value. The distributed weights as the coupons and the face value, of course, and the force as the interest rate volatility or the market force. Okay, and all other derivation remains same. So what is it? The same amount of weight at the free end, the beam having greater force arm will experience greater swing for the same amount of force. For the same length, the beam having greater weight at the free end will experience greater swing for the same amount of force. For the same length of the force arm, even with same weight, the beam having more distributed mass along the force arm will experience lesser swing for the same amount of force. For the same amount of weight, similarly distributed weights and the length of the force arm also being equal, the beam subject to greater force will experience greater swing. Okay, the same logic applies in your fixed income securities. when you compare. Okay. Now this slide is a very, very important slide, and just replace all of them. I'm not going to explain it again. It should be absolutely easy for you to understand the concept here. So in case the market forces are more violent, the market interest rate volatility, and that is going to be reflected in the market interest rate volatility. If the interest rate volatility is very high, so the ones which is having more duration, the more duration will suffer more. Where coupons are less, where the coupons are less, that instrument is going to suffer more. Of course, the zero coupon is going to suffer more than the coupon paying bond. Where the coupons are more, that means much of the cash flow is already received. They are going to suffer less for the same amount of interest rate volatility or market shocks. Full pricing and metric pricing. Well, we meet for the part 2 of this fixed income valuation class. I would upload this part of the video first as the part 1. Part 2 will cover the rest of the portion of it. Thank you.